Hi. Usually I don't like show up in front of a video and I'm like, hello, but hi. Content warning for the movie TIDELAND and what we're going to be saying within this video, because I know that a lot of my videos like tackle really difficult subjects, but this one is really difficult.
What's in Denmark?
And I'm gonna do it anyway. So buckle up. Buckle the fuck up. Fuckle up, if you will.
The simple explanation of TIDELAND is Alice in Wonderland meets Psycho, which is what I've been describing it as. It's the tale of a little girl.
To be young and innocent once again. To be, a child. And to be roaming through the world completely ignorant to what's going on around you. Imagine being a little baby and never having seen Dancer in the Dark.
Your daddy blew smoke in your face to keep you quiet, you know that?
So, there is universally a few, hated movies, or not necessarily hated, it's like not movies that are panned. Like, I don't want you to think, like, The Bye-Bye Man, right? Like, everybody universally was like, The Bye-Bye Man is bullshit and bad. And we all went, that sure sucks. People say that that movie is really, really bad, but unwatchable, it is not. Now, if you want unwatchable, may I suggest any of the fine plethora of videos that I've made on my YouTube channel about such films. But let's pretend. Let's all pretend together. We'll hold hands, sing a song, Wonderwall perhaps, and we'll all be in this together, innocently, because there's a good chance that you have no idea what the fuck TIDELAND is.
Come here, try to understand this. Look at here. There he is. Look, see him? That man was murdered 2,000 years ago.
Terry Gilliam is a director that you can have strong feelings about, or no feelings about, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's been a long time since Terry Gilliam has been around, so I don't know if people have quite as strong feelings perhaps as they used to about Terry Gilliam, because I think the last thing he directed was The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, which is a movie he's been trying to make for 30 fucking years. If you'd like to see more about that failure, might I recommend Lost in La Mancha, a great documentary about Terry Gilliam failing to make a movie.
I've been fantasizing this for a very long time.
A bunch of lightning about to hit us.
Everything that can go wrong goes wrong.
Yes! You got Brazil in there. You got
What this is all about.
That is your receipt for your husband.
Baron Munchausen. You got
Celebrities. I'm Baron Munchausen. That sounds nasty.
Time Bandits.
The most terrifying thing you ever saw is coming to babysit for you tonight.
All right, cut it down.
There are so many classics that Terry Gilliam directed, but he also directed TIDELAND, and we don't talk about that one.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Let's talk about TIDELAND. It's time to talk about TIDELAND finally. As a culture, I think we need to sit down and actually figure this one out. And I know, you're saying one of two things at this very moment. You're saying, one, May, I don't know what TIDELAND is.
That's Eliza Rose. Is that you making those air biscuits, cutting air muffins?
Don't you worry, you'll get your answers in a moment. But if you're saying, I do know what TIDELAND is, and I don't want to talk about TIDELAND, then might I recommend you sticking around and giving this one a chance. Because I think culturally we've all been trying to process this movie for a long time.
Flav, this is where you belong. part of the family now. You hear me?
Let's actually do the hard part and process it. Oh, let me just pick you up there and put you back. Oh, sorry, dearest. We'll give you a back to basics. Very basics. Like the most possible basics. Tideland is a film directed by Terry Gilliam that stars like Jeff Bridges and Jennifer Tilly is in the movie. Briefly, Jennifer Tilly is in the movie for a whole 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, baby. I'm gonna do something real nice for you real soon someday, I promise.
It's quite a cast that doesn't stick around. So the movie's hard to describe like in a word. I would have to literally just tell it to you. So indulge me here. I am going to explain to you, I'm going to explain the bit of Tideland to you. Tideland tells the story of a little girl whose main focus in life is fixing heroin for her parents. Jeff Bridges and Jennifer Tilly are her parents, and they love heroin, and they do that. And they call it their vacation, and they want to go on vacation. So
Time for Daddy to go on a little vacation.
the little girl, completely having no idea what drugs are, she just makes drugs for her parents, injects her parents with the drugs, and then her mother just fucking dies.
Who's the methadone that killed her?
Just dies. But because she's a little girl, she doesn't know what death is. She just hasn't really come to understand that yet, and she also didn't understand that death was a risk factor for the drugs she was making for her mother. So, her father, a giant asshole scumbag motherfucking piece of shit, played by Jeff Bridges, takes her into the middle of fucking nowhere to this old house where he believes that his mother lives, or his grandmother, or somebody related to him lives, and he figured he could shack up there for a bit while he waits for like his wife dying thing to die down.
Not gonna be safe until we get to Grandma's house.
Think Mom will keep falling till she falls right through the earth?
Well, of course, this turns into exactly what you think will happen. He asks his daughter to help him go on vacation, which is, as I said, to prepare drugs. She prepares the drugs for him, injects him with the drugs, and then it's not necessarily that he dies, he just doesn't return. Like, he goes to sleep, kind of, and then he just doesn't wake up. And once again, because our little girl, our main character, has absolutely no concept of death, she doesn't understand that her father has died. And she also doesn't understand what death means for her, like what the actual realities of being with a dead person's body are.
A real stinker. Don't say it's me, 'cause it's you.
So she treats him as if he's still alive, but ignoring her. Or still alive, but asleep. Or still alive, but still on vacation. She doesn't quite understand that he's dead. So in her mind, she's not entirely alone, but the reality is, she's now entirely alone in the middle of nowhere, with no food and nothing. Completely nothing. So she starts to get, like, hungry, and she'd already been starving. And there's a moment in the film where she spits out, like, brown liquid. Now, if you know anything about starvation, you're spitting out brown liquid, which is like a key sign that your body is starving. She spits out this brown liquid and then immediately looks at it and is like, "It's okay. I'm my own doctor, and I say that it's fine."
You will survive. Complete recovery is expected. Thank you.
And in her mind, it is fine, because she doesn't quite understand that that means that she could potentially die. So she goes out into the world, into the Tideland, I guess, and meets a woman and her son.
Any bees? Go mass elsewhere. One sting and I'm paralyzed, most likely dead.
But you are dead.
Her son has some sort of mental disability that isn't in depth explored. It's definitely coded that he has some sort of mental disability.
Who was that in the chair? Was that your mama?
My daddy.
but he is exceptionally older than her. He's probably like 18, and she's like 7. Age difference. Big one. Anyway, this is important for later in the film.
Off your lips. Get ready.
Terry.
Characters, and they're grotesques, and they could be just very unsympathetic, and it's really important to keep understanding why they are what they are. I kind of want to love all the characters in the films, no matter how ugly they may be.
But this kid's mom, like, starts to take care of this little girl ever so slightly, and she comes to help with Jeff Bridges' dead body by, you know, skinning his body and taxidermying him so that he will forever be there and the little girl will never understand that he has died.
See, the skin has to be peeled, then the fat trimmed, and the bones, they get sprinkled with powdered borax.
So he just lives there permanently as a taxidermied dead person that she plays with, not understanding that he's dead. We got that? We're all on the same page. It's not pleasant to talk about, but we're going to get through it. It's a hard video. They say it gets colder. You're bundled up now, but wait until you get older. So, the boy's mom obtains things by having sex with people for them, and the little girl observes this happening and is like, I see. So,
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Why'd you stop us?
I should have sex with somebody to get something. So she attempts to have sex with the much older boy, and it is one of the most uncomfortable moments in cinema history, without a doubt. And then his mom walks in on him, and it's so fucking horrible. So all of this shit happens, and then the little girl, completely fucked now because she got caught trying to have sex with a much older boy, she runs away and goes and just hides. So now let's talk about the train thing. So the bit with the train is the boy that she's in love with in the film wants to blow himself up to destroy the train, because it's like the only thing that he seems to understand in his like direct reality. So it makes sense for him to target the train and think that the train is somehow responsible for why his life is so bad.
And then I'll kill that shark, and I'll be a hero. I'm pretty sure.
So at the end of the film, the little girl, completely lost and alone, no parents anymore, no surrogate parents, no boyfriend, nothing at all, is overjoyed when the train explodes from the tracks and people come screaming, barreling out of the fiery crash. And she realizes that the boy that she loved did what he set out to do. He blew himself up to stop the train.
I love you.
And she, because she doesn't have a concept of death, doesn't understand that he has died from this, and is jumping up and down cheering that this happened while everyone around her is hideously mangled from the train crash. And that is TIDELAND.
Yeah.
I think maybe we sit silently for a moment, think about why we started a YouTube channel. So I've been meaning to give a shout out to my friend Tara forever, because like Tara gives me great ideas for videos, but Tara and I talked at length about TIDELAND once upon a time because she strongly connects with the movie, even though it's very widely hated and impossible to defend, that a lot of the things in the film are possible and can happen.
And your wife forever.
and probably do happen, but I don't necessarily know if artistically depicting that is responsible. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. It's a hot take, sure. Maybe people will disagree with me, but I do think that the biggest problem people have with Tideland is not necessarily what the film is trying to say, but what it's done to say it to you. What it's put you through as an audience member to say it. So it's important to address the way stylistically that the film is put together is we see the whole film through her perspective and kind of through her eyes, which is to say innocently, completely innocently. We too are presented this information as if it's not shocking. So there's a part in the film where she's sitting on Jeff Bridges' rotting dead body and bouncing up and down on his lap because he's making like guttural like sounds because his stomach is bloated because he's died.
You're a real stinker.
It's fucking horrible to be put through when you know what is going on, but like you are forced to enter the perspective of a young child who has no idea what's happening. And I think that really stresses people out to be forced into a perspective as a child. And I think the reason we hate this is because it points out this like weird fear we all have that we were neglected. Like when we were kids, we were neglected. We don't want to say that, we don't want to think that, and we definitely don't want to remember that. But for many of us, for the majority of us, it's true that when we were kids, we were neglected in some way. When you watch a movie that is very intensely about neglect, like capital N, it's about neglect, baby.
Get off!
You're going to have natural, visceral reactions to what you're seeing. So I think that the film taps into something that we all really, really don't want to engage with, which is this feeling of our childhood being more fucked up than we'd like to remember it. And we all like to remember it well, even though for the majority of us, it was not good, and like it could have been better. It extends into later life. A lot of the concepts that go on in the film, like especially in regards to the way that it constructs neglect. So we're going to now move on and talk about how the film kind of talks about neglect and also how neglect sort of relates to the film and why people don't like it.
Caroline, dont la mère s'est médiocrement souciée, est anorexique.
Neglect. When you're growing up as a child, you have no concept of this. Like, you hear about other kids who were neglected. Oftentimes I remember watching TV and seeing on the news, you know, parents that like excessively beat their kids and like abuse their kids. But when you ask any of your friends, you know, all of their parents beat them, all of them. I think the majority of parents probably do beat them, and I do think that a lot of us justify that sort of thing. No, Thailand is not dealing with parents that beat their kids, but it's an example of how we will often justify and try to get on the same level as our parents to try and make excuses for a lot of the things that they did to us that were neglectful.
Get on with it, you little bitch.
You and that little shit critter can leave whenever you want.
Now, I'm not necessarily saying we need to go out and cancel our parents, but I do think it's worth remembering where your life sort of came from and how much you didn't understand and were forced to understand. So I feel like what neglect really captures for me is like this enacting a grim reality on something that has no concept of that grim reality. So why is beating a child wrong?
She's mine!
I don't think so. No. Ah!
Well, because the child has no concept of violence, can't fight back, and is a life form that doesn't understand pain in any dimension. So introducing pain from a loving standpoint can only confuse that child. So the reason that beating your child is wrong is because it very, like, it does a detriment to their life. It causes them trauma. And I guess trauma is just when you can't put together why something happened to you.
You're dreaming yourself far away, Daddy.
And so, because it's inexcusable, no kid will understand how a loving parent can also beat them. And this is how a child, like, will grow into an adult and understand suffering. And we understand, like, we wonder why people grow up to be really fucking miserable. And this is probably because when they were growing up, they were a problem. And their parents, they had the concept to solve the problem with violence. They felt like solving you, the problem, with violence was okay. This is difficult to juxtapose with love, because love, I think, is impossible to juxtapose with violence.
This time, this is not a vacation.
This little girl is going to now grow up thinking that she killed both of her parents. If she survives the situation, she will grow up thinking she killed both of her parents because her parents put her in a situation which was neglectful. She was given a grim reality and didn't know what it was. So she didn't know what to do with it. She's completely devoid of responsibility for any of the things that happened to her. But that's why it's so fucked up, and that's why it's so neglectful. Because she has a level of agency and a level of worldview, but I don't think that most parents understand that their children are new to the world.
Okay, that's what I want to tell you. Good night. Straight to sleep now, or else your mom and all the bogmen of the world will come chasing after you.
New to the world, like, and the social order of the world, the political order of the world, the religious order of the world, the way that things kind of, like, make sense in both a physical and metaphysical sense. Like, kids also don't understand ethics. They don't quite understand why an action is a moral good or a moral bad beyond whether or not it's good if it happens to them. When her father says, "I'm going on vacation," and then he leaves on his drug vacation and does not return.
Well, time for Daddy's vacation.
Not too long this time, Daddy.
Oh, no. Just a little vacation.
What is the functional difference between that and a parent going, you know, I'm gonna run down to the gas station, and they don't come back? What's the difference? So the grim reality that's being, like, hideously inflicted upon this child is the grim reality that their parents are out to get them. Eventually, this reality will come true for the kid, like, that their parents are out to get them. It's not just innocence at some point. The film, I think, does a good job of demonstrating why that anger is destined to exist in all of us.
Why can't you kill him? Don't be so soft.
'Cause I can't. You know I can't. You hear me?
So to kind of segue into relationship stuff and the relationship dimension for this, I wanna address sort of the way that this manifests later in life, because this girl grows up in a metaphorical sense from her parents dying. I mean, over the course of time in the film, it's very short, but she goes through different stages of life, and we're meant to kind of understand different stages of her life and how she processes those different stages based on the trauma that we know that she's suffered in the past. And of course, we're supposed to know this, but she isn't. So it's tragically ironic for us to watch her as she goes about her actions, knowing that there's really understandable reasons for her actions. She's very justified in a lot of her ethical actions, and because she's a child, she's even more justified in her ethical actions. And so when this enters the relationship dimension,
She had two good eyes. She loved her daddy.
things get really fucky-wucky really, really quickly, and I also think this is probably why people hate Terry Gilliam for making this film. So the next part of this little girl's life is naturally relationships. Like, a girl is going to move on and into a period of her life where she's experiencing relationships, and she's going to take with her the information that she gained from her parents and from authority figures and from adults. For the majority of us, we don't really get a social diagram for how relationships are supposed to work, how sexuality is supposed to work. There is that old bit that like sex education is very futile, which is true. It is incredibly unhelpful because it doesn't necessarily give you the information you need. It tells you that there is like a pladanga and a vajula, and sometimes they go smash. But they don't really get into the social dynamic of this. They don't really get into how fucked up exactly that is. And when you're a kid and you're confronted with the sexual reality, how are you supposed to understand it if you don't understand it at all? You can't even begin to possibly understand it. So if you can't begin to possibly understand it, then it's great when you just get shoved in a situation where you're expected to then just do relationship stuff. So in the movie Tideland, the little girl is whisked away from her parents and immediately like trying to find ground and home with something or somebody. So she connects with somebody, which is natural. I think the majority of people do this in a normal way, but it gets weird when beyond connecting, she feels like a pressure to turn the relationship or to turn the friendship into a relationship. And she feels the pressure to turn the relationship into a sexual relationship.
They were kissers. Young kissers. Jill and my daddy were young kissers.
And it's not at any point because she wants to. It's not really because she wants him to have sex with her. She doesn't desire him sexually. She desires the connection that they have. And because of the connection that they have, she's forced to go through a bunch of really traumatic shit, including a situation where a parent figure, like the boy's parent, walks in on her like as she's attempting to like have sex with this boy. Now, if we subtract the age, which I know is impossible to do, and this is why this film is indefensible, but if you can subtract the age, think about this in terms of they're the same age, and a mother walks in on a boy and a girl getting hot and heavy. The girl in this situation is going to be blamed.
You're starved now. You hear me? No more food for you. No more you.
The girl in this situation is going to be accused of seducing the boy. The girl is going to be called a slut. The girl is going to be called a whore. The girl is not going to be welcome over there anymore, even if the girl desperately needs that life. Resources are taken away when a woman has sex. A woman can potentially lose everything in her life when she has sex. But as a child, you have no concept of what the risk factors are for having sex with somebody. So when shoved into this reality or pressured or pushed into this reality, you find yourself once again traumatized, because trauma is like our inability to kind of justify something in our own mind. It's impossible to justify your own actions sexually.
I'm Dale, and you're my daddy.
Just as much as it's impossible to justify other people's. While people can mistreat you and you can try and understand it, when you're young and don't understand what you're doing and you're forced into these sexual situations that push you way outside of your comfort zone and you have to just adapt to them and go with them, you find yourself getting a whole bunch of secondhand trauma that you didn't need to get, because ultimately you're in a situation where you're being manipulated sexually even when you don't realize you're being manipulated sexually. So our little girl loses her parents because of neglect. She loses her surrogate family because of neglect and what I would probably call sexual abuse.
You have to show me your special secret first.
In a roundabout way, and she is left with nothing. She's left with nothing and also no understanding of what has just occurred to her. She has no concept of any of the events that have happened. So while we all universally can look at what happened and be in garish horror at the things that she's endured throughout the film, she doesn't act like she's endured anything. She acts completely fine.
Little girl.
So with that, we can get to the cool, crazy, weird train ending. And isn't that great? So Tideland also makes an attempt, I think, to talk about young boys and boyhood innocence and how boys are often thrown into this like hero role.
Then I'll kill that shark.
and I'll be a hero.
And I'll help you. That way we can be on TV.
They're pointed at things and told, like, go over there and try your ass off at that. They'll be like, go do a sport. But our society is very foundationally based on concept of heroes, people being heroic, people living their legacy more so than their actual life. People are more concerned, like, with their legacy than the actual life that they're living. And this is important when you get to, like, the social script that boys are often handed, which is go the fuck out there and be a hero. Save the world, save someone, protect someone, do somebody a favor.
And like this. And then the monster shark, he comes down the tracks.
And oftentimes, that manifests in them thinking they should die. They should give their life for something. It's not that they have a cause that they care about and a moment arrives and they have to make the ultimate sacrifice. They are looking for something they can blow themselves up doing so that they can make everybody proud, so they can live out the social script. Because them, at a young age, innocent, don't really understand the ramifications of pain and suffering and death. They don't understand the suffering that causes the people that you love. They don't understand the concept of how their suicidal ramming themselves at something can often, instead of making the people around them feel pride, it makes them feel fear and, like, betrayal. So at the end of the film, our boy character is, like, indoctrinated into believing that he has to be a hero and do something heroic, so he kills himself, blows himself up to destroy a train, which is nothing. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, it does not matter. And he doesn't understand that the world is going to keep going after he's gone. He doesn't understand that his sacrifice is not actually going to mean shit, because the world is actually a whole lot bigger than one individual, and oftentimes when you do this kind of thing, the impact is this big, and you think it's this big, because in your mind, the world is huge to you, but it isn't to the news. It isn't to, society. So boys are fucked too.
Mama needs reading to before I kill for you.
So just because the movie features a little girl having her innocence just ransacked, this boy also does. And he becomes a victim of himself, but he also becomes a victim of his social script. So they're both a victim of their social script. And at the end, the girl can only feel happiness for him because she has no concept of what he's done. With everyone screaming bloody murder around her, being just brutalized, she has no concept of human mutilation or train accidents or people getting hurt and mangled. So she's just excited that something happened. It was like fireworks to her. Can you blame her for enjoying the pain of others when she herself feels pain? But does she really feel the pain? Do we feel the pain when we're kids? I don't necessarily think that we do. And because of that, a lot of parents have a really hard time, like, comprehending what's happened.
Could you leave the light on tonight, please?
Sure, baby, you got it.
And I think society also has a really hard time comprehending what's happened. It's basically, whenever a kid enters this world, they're handed a script without knowing it, and they don't know what their script is going to be, and sometimes, most of the time, it's really neglectful, and it ends up putting them in a position where they innocently go about their lives doing harm to other people or doing harm to themselves. They end up traumatized, alone, have hard times with relationships, oftentimes in their lives, or end up entirely alone and suffering and starving and in denial, because this sort of thing fucks up people in a cosmic sense, like in such a way that there's like no undoing it, and there's only like the processing of it, and most people can't even catch up to the fact that it's happened anyway for them to like process what's happened. There's a great book by Junji Ito called Hellstar Ramina. It's the story of a planet that's named after a girl on Earth. The planet becomes a monster planet that wants to kill Earth. So naturally, everybody on Earth thinks that the girl that the planet is namesake must die to appease the planet, to stop the planet from killing them. So everyone on Earth, all at the same time, are all attacking and trying to kill the same young girl. Eventually, the young girl is is like saved by like a homeless man who has no idea who she is and like just woke up and had no idea what was going on, and they end up being like the last survivors from Earth. And at the end they're like floating away in a little pod, the last survivors of the worst cosmic event in history. And Romina looks out the window and she only just starts to feel her father that she lost and for the friends that she lost.
You're all alone like me then. Happened so fast.
It's almost like we can only ever view our lives in the rearview mirror. Like we can only ever really look back at things and then understand them. Like we have no concept of what is currently happening to us when it is happening. Like we have no idea what the intentions of other people are and whether or not those intentions are good. The world is a very cruel place for children, which is a theme in a lot of films. Specifically, like Night of the Hunter is a great example of this.
Come to me, boy.
What's wrong, John?
Didn't you hear me, boy?
John, when your dad says come, you should mind him.
He ain't my dad.
The world is incredibly cruel to the young, and the young are often so innocent that they have no idea that the world is being cruel to them. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for watching my video. I love you. I'm sorry this happened to you. I really think that we probably all needed to actually have this conversation, and I think most people would struggle to have this conversation with you given the option. I think most people are afraid of thinking about their childhood, and because of this, I think a lot of people hate TIDELAND. So is TIDELAND good or bad?
No, it's weird.
Look, I'm not a scientist. I don't like pick apart every scene and go, is this one good? Is this one bad? Is this one a 5 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10? Do I look like I do math? To tell you the truth, I'm glad I watched TIDELAND. It was a rough watch. I don't know if I can really excuse it. I don't necessarily know if I want to recommend it to other human beings. I don't regret watching it. I'm glad I watched it. I think a lot of the things that the movie says were things I needed to hear and changed the way that I look at my life. So, if that's the measure for whether or not a movie is a success, then I think that means the movie is successful. But if the movie being successful requires anything else, then I think this one's gonna have to fall apart.
I wasn't there.
So it's up to you. Let me know in the comments section below. Do you think TIDELAND is a bullshitter or do you think it's great? I don't know. What do you think? Captain? Champ? Friendo? Organism? I've been May, your very strange biological device that's come to euthanize you. This has actually been the last moments of your life before you die. So make sure and like and subscribe. I know that that might be hard to do, but I would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. And make sure and check out my other videos. Now, and with that, Andrew, you don't have to be in a coma anymore. That's right, we're all waiting for you. The whole family's here. Okay, goodbye, kids. Just play safe in the road. Don't play in the road. If you're gonna play in the road, be safe in the road.
It's been, if it's not been said, it's been experienced, it's been felt. You move on, and that's what I like about working this way is it has to be a flexible process. And you've got to be able to make choices very quick. And in the end, the film will be the film we set out to be on many levels, but it'll be a different thing on many other levels. And that's, in fact, why I like making movies, because if it was just the film we set out to make, I mean, you might as well bring somebody and hire somebody to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to find things out as we go along.
Caroline, dont la mère s'est médiocrement souciée, est anorexique.